Lobos.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Hello again, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I am a professional artist and educator trying to bring you the absolute best in art historical content and videos.
But these days, I practice a new profession.
So today, I'm literally traveling across the state of Iowa.
Maybe we should travel by map. Good idea, Fozzie.
So today, I'm traveling across the state of Iowa. I started off in the little town of Corydon, and I'm heading to a little town outside of Council Bluffs. I'm going to visit an aunt of mine. This aunt of mine is, she's a fighter, and right now she is fighting this horrible disease known as Alzheimer's disease. As I think about the fight that people have had in my family with this horrific disease, I think about others that have had to fight. And in the art community, there's no better example of a fighter in my book than Artemisia Gentileschi.
Well, that wasn't so hard, was it? Okay.
One of the most talented artists of the Baroque was Artemisia Gentileschi, an amazing artist that has been nearly forgotten by history. She's one of the first women to emerge as a great artist, but is often overshadowed by others of the time period, such as Peter Paul Rubens, Nicolas Poussin, Diego Velázquez, and Rembrandt van Rijn. She was a female that was working in what was considered a man's occupation. It was a huge debate. What a great talent, but she does not belong in a man's profession.
I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong.
In her youth, it was not allowed for women to have apprenticeships to become artists. But Artemisia's father, Orazio Gentileschi, was a great fresco painter and teacher. Her mother died when she was only 12 years old, and she spent a lot of time with her father in his art studio. He trained her and exposed her to the vast number of working artists of Rome. So really, without question, Artemisia Gentileschi had some opportunities that many other females didn't have at the time. Of all of the artists that were working in Rome at this time, she most appreciated and was most influenced by the rogue Michelangelo Caravaggio. She, like almost everyone else, really connected with his chiaroscuro style. She would use the light and shadow to add drama into her own works, just like Caravaggio.
It's an interesting thought, Ercolini.
However interesting as the thought may be, it makes not one bit of difference to how you feel.
Her first known works were created when she was only 17 years old. The best example of this is Susanna and the Elders. We see her perfection with proportion and anatomy. She was heavily influenced by the Renaissance and artists like Michelangelo Buonarroti that created some of the best paintings of that time period.
I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Now this painting illustrates the biblical story of Susanna, a young wife that attracted the harassing comments of the community elders. In other paintings of this story, Susanna was painted as a flirty girl that teased these older men. But Artemisia shows her in a different light, with Susanna as the obvious victim of this situation. This was the first of many works that she would illustrate the psychological situations between the sexes and illustrations of biblical stories. Susanna cowers as the men hover over her to quiet her cries. Now there is a possible parallel between this painting and her own situation at the time. Not long after being trained by her father in his studio, several of the other male apprentices were very aggressively harassing her.
This is some kind of joke, right?
One of the artists that was very attracted to her was Agostino Tassi. He raped her in 1612 when she was 19 years old. Self-conscious about this, Artemisia agreed to marry her aggressor and continued with the physical relationship. When her father found out about the situation, he was extremely upset, especially since Tassi had no intentions of actually following through with a marriage.
Oh, you dirty son of a bitch!
Her father would sue Tassi for injury and damages. Now this would develop into a 7-month-long rape trial. According to court testimony, Tassi had tried to get her alone several times before actually trapping her in her own bedroom. In order to prove the allegations, Artemisia underwent a vaginal examination in front of the full open to the public courtroom to see if her claims were actually true. Defending himself, Tassi said that he was teaching the untalented girl perspective that day in question, and he never had any physical contact with her. Several witnesses came forward to claim that she had been far from innocent in the whole situation. But other witnesses came forward against Tassi, saying that he had bragged about the incident. It is also important to note that he was put into prison for raping his sister-in-law and then hiring a hitman to kill his wife.
I don't like bullies.
In the end, Tassi was convicted of rape. He was banished from Rome, but within 4 months, he was back at the Gentileschi studio, at her father's invitation.
You know, what do I know? I color for a living, but I know that that's not right.
Toward the end of this trial, Artemisia began painting Judith slaying Holofernes, another biblical story, this time of Judith, a Jewish widow that perfectly fit into the mindset of Artemisia's work and situation at this particular time. Judith's city was being attacked by the Middle Eastern Emperor Nebuchadnezzar. His army was pushing the region because they had refused to help him fight in a war with the Medes. After the war was won, Nebuchadnezzar's commander, Holofernes, was in charge of dealing the punishment. He would order the city's water supply to be completely cut off, and after 34 days, the people were suffering. Judith had a plan. She and her maid took wine, oil, and food to the tent of Holofernes. She captivated him with her beauty. She visited for 3 nights to gain his trust, and on the 4th night, the day before the city was going to give up to the army, she was invited to a party at the camp. Holofernes got drunk, and after he passed out, Judith would cut off his head with his own sword. She would smuggle his head out of the camp in a food bag. His head was then hung on the city wall. The leaderless soldiers would then abandon their post and go on back, leaving the city. But here, the woman took control of the situation, used her mind to take advantage, and brought down the mighty Holofernes in a single motion of mind and body. The perceived weak and smart always defeat the tough and stupid.
My brain is the size of a rat turd!
And it was upon deeper reflection of that biblical story of Judith and Holofernes that she would gain an internal strength as well as a stronger subject matter in the artworks that she was producing from that point forward. Obviously, Artemisia saw herself as the weak, but she was going to get stronger. She was going to get smarter and more skilled. Her technical skills were truly amazing at this point.
And after that experience, it wouldn't be long before Artemisia Gentileschi met someone that would forever change her life.
As mentioned, her idol, Michelangelo Caravaggio, had painted a very similar artwork to this about 14 years beforehand, only with a slightly more grossed out Judith.
Homie, don't play that!
Again, Artemisia would approach this very differently from her male counterparts. In her version, Judith is pulling the head of Holofernes as she cuts through his throat. She would again revisit the same subject matter in 1620. A slightly more brutal version, with blood shooting out of Holofernes' neck like a fountain. Artemisia also gives the wardrobe a little bit of a tweak, as well as a slightly bigger sword this time around.
I'm proud of you people!
Also around this time, shortly before her trial, in November of 1612, Artemisia would get married to the artist Pietro Antonio Stiazzi. Together they had a daughter. The couple would move to Florence, where they worked at the Academy of Design. She would become a member of the Academy in 1616. This was completely out of the ordinary for a woman to receive this honor. She was patronized by the very powerful de' Medici family, and on an occasion where she was questioned about her abilities, she replies, "My illustrious lordship, I'll show you what a woman can do."
Do you understand that, cowboy?
And in fact, the second Judith and Holofernes was owned by a member of the de' Medici family, Maria, who had hid the painting because of its graphic nature.
Looks like you've been up to the devil's business.
It was thought that her money-stupid husband accumulated a lot of debt that she had no knowledge about. They left Florence to return to Rome in debt and with damaged reputations. Artemisia was in fact the family provider and hired 2 servants to help her. Soon she and her husband were separated and he basically vanished. Artemisia and her daughter would move to Naples, where the two would root for about 10 years.
Your plans never work.
She would leave Naples after about 10 years with a new patron, King Charles I of England, where she was a member of the court from 1638 to 1641. After civil war broke out in England, she would return to Naples for the rest of her life. She died with a bit of a reputation, being called a nymphomaniac and an adulterer in her epitaphs. What is truly sad to me is that throughout her life, people were accusing her, abusing her, and all around nasty to her at every corner of life, from her father to her husband and all sorts of people in between. But she was able to get the best of the system because of the skills that she was able to gain. She was self-sufficient in a world totally against females being self-sufficient. Artemisia is a great example of the opportunities that are open when someone has developed skills to offer others, and they're able to use those skills to open doors of opportunity.
So today, as we looked at Artemisia Gentileschi, I'd really like to dedicate this video to my aunt and all of those that are battling with Alzheimer's disease. And if you would like to donate to that cause, check that link right down there below.
It's like girls are a different species or something.